Well, hi guys. Welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10, where I cover our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. Are you a Who Dat fan? If you're a Who Dat fan, subscribe to my channel because I love the Saints as much as you do. Put me in your subscriptions, and anytime you want to talk about the Saints, watch one of my videos. I'm talking about them. I let you know what I think. You tell me what you think in the comments. I respond to my comments. This is Simon. He's one of my oldest cats that I have. This beautiful boy right here. And I got Ravina by my feet. She's one of the oldest cats I've got too. Hi, Ravina. She likes giving me love bites on my fingers. Okay, so let's talk about the Saints, right? In this video, we're going to talk about the top prospects in the first round that the Saints could get. And we're going to look at the roster and we're going to talk about how each one of them would fit. And ultimately, this will get us to a better understanding of who would be the best overall pick, perhaps. So you guys let me know when this video is over. Let me know right now. Some of you probably just see the title, comment. If you comment, that's great. Let me know what you think. Here is my list of the top 12 prospects in the first round. In my opinion, I've got them ranked in this way because this is the priority I would place on them. Now, you can put these players in any order you want and don't come at me with how I've got them ranked. We're going to go through each of them and you let me know if I'm off base on anything when I talk about them. But if they're on this list in my top 12, that means I'm willing to take them with pick 8, even Francis Malinois. Yeah, so first we're going to pull up the defense for the Saints because I think it's pretty obvious the players on this top 12 list, I mean, most of them are defensive players, the ones that Saints fans are really focused on. And so let's look at the defense first. I've got running back Jeremiah Love as my number one prospect. And when we pull up the offense, we'll talk about him. But let's go skip to number 2, and that would be safety Caleb Downs. Now, as far as I'm concerned, best prospects in the draft, I think Jeremiah Love is a can't miss kind of prospect. And then Caleb Downs on defense would be my number one defensive can't miss prospect. But I'm not so in love with taking any of these players that I would, without question, pass up an opportunity to trade down. And I think that's really what it really boils down to. Whoever's left on the board at pick 8, and if we're willing to take them, and I've got a list of 12 here, so if somebody on this list is still going to be there at pick 8, I'd be willing to take that player at pick 8. I'd be fine. But I want to talk about the ins and outs. I want to talk about why they would be great on the team and maybe the question marks we have. So Caleb Downs, almost no question marks whatsoever. I think Caleb Downs is going to be perfect in this defense, and he'll be able to do almost everything we ask him to do. He doesn't have a lot of free safety on his tape this past year, but he can still do it. He's mostly around the line of scrimmage, and we all, as Saints fans, with Brandon Staley as our coordinator, we all picture Caleb Downs to be a nickel, a star. So he'll be able to do that mix match shit. And yeah, it would work out great. But primarily, kind of want to just pin him as he's going to be a nickelback. We're going to have outside corners. He's going to be there by the line of scrimmage, whether he's designated strong safety or whether he's playing the nickel or whatever. That's what he's going to be. He's basically going to be a nickelback. And there's a lot of good players in this draft that can play nickel. And I think there's a couple of them in later rounds you can get that would fit into the defensive scheme we run pretty well. So, positional value. And if he's a safety. So, of course, that's going to be a concern for some people. It's not that much of a concern for me. I don't look at positional value in the first round the way everybody else does. I mean, if you've got a really good player and he's a safety, get him. If it's a guard, get him. People say you don't take it in the first round. Running back, linebacker, all of the best players on the board this year are, non-primary, positions. So, yeah, so there's that. If you draft in Caleb Downs, you're getting a safety, specifically on our team, probably majority of his snaps, a nickelback. So is that what you really want to spend the top 10 pick on? I've got him number 2 on my list for a reason because he's a great player. The only issue I have with him as a player is, yeah, you don't see him play deep a lot. So if we ask him to do that, how's that going to work? And it probably works out fine. People say he's not as athletic as some of the other safeties that have come out. But, you know, I think it'll be fine. I think his top speed will be fine, and it will probably won't ask him to play free safety all that much. So besides that, play it in the slot. If he has to go up against some sort of speedy, athletic wide receiver, maybe he gets exposed a little bit there. And, we'll see. The league's moving towards running the ball a lot. So people are looking for bigger slots that can handle the run. And, you know, tight ends are getting more athletic too. So if you're in that slot and you got to cover tight end, it's been an issue for the Saints defense for years and years under Dennis Allen. We weren't exposed by the tight end as much this past year. But yeah, that's really not a concern for me at all with Caleb Downs. I think that Caleb Downs can handle any of it. The issue is, do you really want to take a nickelback with your first round pick, regardless of how good he is? If you had an opportunity to trade down and pick up an extra second round pick, maybe a second and a fourth, just to move down a couple of spots, you might miss out on Caleb Downs. Oh, he's one of the best players in the draft, but hey, you're picking up extra bodies this way in a draft class where I think the second round is it's got a lot of really good players. So that's the only issue. I mean, Downs fits. Most of the time in these simulators, Downs is available, and that's my question. If I get a good enough trade offer, do I just grab Downs? He's number 2 on my board. But that's the caveat. I can still get a Keontae Scott or a trade in Stooks in the second round. I can still fill the position Caleb Downs would fill. Just pick up an extra pick and move down a little bit and just hit off this board with someone else besides Downs. I mean, you got to see who's there at pick 8. Downs is there a lot in these mocks lately. A guy that's almost never there, Sonny Styles, he's number 3 on my list. Linebacker, Sonny Styles. When you look at the defense, I don't have a slot specified for nickel, but you imagine that our nickelback is probably going to be, it would be Caleb Downs. I think Terrell Burgess is our immediate backup for sure. And then I'm not sure what other direction we'll go. There's talk we've already got the player on our team. It could be Quincy Riley who plays nickel. It could be Jonas Sanker. It could be, people are saying Julian Blackman. He's too good as a free safety for me to be putting him in the slot. I don't know. And his health, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to start the season with an often injured guy like Blackman playing that star position. Okay, so that is something I should have said for Caleb Downs while I was talking about him reflecting on our roster. That's another reason why you could pass on Caleb Downs. You've already got good depth at safety. And you've got a couple of pieces that can play nickel. So still a no. It's a major need for the Saints. I want a star there to play the star. You had Alontae Taylor. You get Caleb Downs. Yeah, it seems like a perfect fit. All right, on to Sonny Styles. That's another position group on our defense that looks pretty good. Linebacker. I mean, we've got Caden Ellis now to go along with Pete Werner. We love Danny Stutzman. We love Isaiah Stallbird. Jalen Ford is an excellent player as well. We're really good at linebackers. So just like before with Caleb Downs at safety, that's another reason you don't get Sonny Styles. You've already got really good depth at linebacker, but I think Sonny Styles is way too good of a player to pass up. This is another one of those best player availables, and part of what I was talking about with draft strategy. When you look at this defense, you might be thinking, no, we really need to get an outside corner. We really need a nickel. You might look at that defensive line like I do often. And then, of course, the depth at edge. There's lots of positional needs when looking at this defense that you would rather address before linebacker. Well, I think Sonny Styles is too good of a player to pass up. No matter who you have at linebacker now, Sonny Styles comes in and he gets a starting job right away. Same thing with Caleb Downs. Same thing with the offensive players we'll talk about later. Sonny Styles would be a guy to get. I would not pass him up. As a matter of fact, I might trade down if Caleb Downs is available because I feel like we can still address Nickelback, but I'm not sure about trading down off of the opportunity to get Sonny Styles because there's some good linebackers, but yeah, maybe Jake Golday in the second round or Jacob Rodriguez. You know, you can look at Anthony Hill Jr., but yeah, yeah, Sonny Styles would be hard for me to pass on if he's there. Most of the time, he's not there. Another player on my list that's almost never there in these mocks when the Saints draft to pick 8 is my number 4 player, Rel Reese, formerly Arvell Reese, now Rel Reese. And he says he's an edge rusher, and I'm sorry, he's a linebacker. He didn't show a lot of edge rushing stuff. The combine, people were talking about his inability to bend and this and that and everything else. You know, he's a good player. You see it on the film. He's obviously got the ability to rush the passer. But yeah, I think he would be one of those players in the same situation as Caden Ellis, where you're going to play off ball linebacker and we'll put you at edge rusher if need be in certain situations. But we're also going to ask Reese to rush the passer from the linebacker position as well. So much like what Caden Ellis is doing. Now, Reese would be an improvement from Caden Ellis, in my opinion, but it's also one of those situations where we've already got people on the roster doing it. Downs would be our starting star, no doubt about it. There's nobody on our team now that's going to start ahead of Downs at star. And I think Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese would start at linebacker, whether that's ahead of Caden Ellis or Pete Werner or Danny Stutzman or whatever. You grab Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese in this draft, you're probably moving away from Pete Werner. You're probably trading him away. So something to think about. I think ultimately with Arvell Reese, he would be an off-ball linebacker for us who would highlight an edge rusher, much like what I expect Caden Ellis to do this year. So that's how those two players fit. We've got a embarrassment of riches at linebacker right now. So we draft Styles or Reese. Yeah, something's we're gonna have to make a move. And trading Pete Werner seems like the thing to do in that situation. I don't think you get rid of a safety if you draft Caleb Downs. I think you keep all your safeties. Blackman's an injury waiting to happen. Sanker may be asked to highlight a star if you draft Downs and something happens to him, something like that. Yeah, you don't get rid of any safeties. Terrell Burgess is a good special teamer and he can play safety and nickel. Yeah, I don't think you get rid of any safeties if you grab Downs. But linebacker, yeah, I think you're trading Pete Werner if you end up with Styles or Reese. All right, number 6 on my list and number 7 on my list, Ruben Bain, David Bailey. the David Bailey conversation is the one I think we really have to have. So both of them are edge rushers. You look at our defense, I would label outside linebacker as edge rusher and just let's get rid of the confusion altogether. I'm so sick of people calling defensive ends edge rushers. When you have a 3-4 defensive front, the three on the line of scrimmage are defensive linemen with their hand in the dirt. Okay, sometimes there's two players there, sometimes there's four, but if their hand's in the dirt, they're a defensive lineman. But I'm sorry, the last guy with the hand in the dirt is a defensive end to me. And calling Chase Young and Carl Granderson defensive ends just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me when their hand's not in the dirt. They're standing up, they're an outside linebacker, but it confuses people. Basically, I would just rename outside linebacker edge rusher in this situation. Okay, my Simon boy, he's been laying on me all this time. He loves him dad so much. So, Ruben Bain, David Bailey. They'll be outside linebackers majority of the time. David Bailey, all of the time. David Bailey's not going to be defensive end, put his hand in the dirt. David Bailey's going to be stand up outside linebacker. Now, can he hold up against the run? That's the issue. We already know as a designated pass rusher, David Bailey should be a menace. That's what's so attractive about drafting him. If he's there at pick 8, you just have to get him because you imagine it's 3rd and long. Chase Young's coming from one side, and you got David Bailey on the other side. Oh, man. You can't double team both of them. And it just sounds so exciting. You have to get the 3rd and long first. And in order to do that, you got to stop the run. We were better against the run on defense this past year. I still think you could upgrade that defensive line big time. And I'm not sure if Brandon Staley's the type of coordinator that's going to say, okay, let's put Carl Granderson out there on early downs because he's really good against the run. And then on 3rd down, we take Grando out and don't give him the opportunity to rush the passer, and we're going to put in David Bailey instead. I don't think Brandon Staley's going to operate like that. I haven't seen him really operate like that. Usually, he's just substituting. So when Chase Young comes out of the game, you know, Cam Jordan would come in, and Cam would handle 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. Carl Granderson, if Grando got a break, Cam came in, and it wasn't okay. We're going to have just one or the other as a pass rusher. So I'm saying you draft David Bailey, and when it's time for Grando to take a breather, David Bailey goes out there and he has his reps, and he plays 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down, maybe for a whole drive, while Grando gets a breather, right? And that's where the issue comes in for me. Bailey isn't great against the run. He could get better. And if he's out there on 1st down and 2nd down and I'm the offense, I'm audibling into a run right at him. And maybe you don't ever get to 3rd and long with David Bailey out there like that. So to me, he's a situational pass rusher. To me, his greatest effect will be as a pass rusher. So situational pass rusher, he could get you double digit sacks. Guy could be a perennial Pro Bowler if he's getting 12 sacks every year. But he's a detriment on 1st and 2nd down. Now he could always improve. And that's something, if we draft him, I'm going to have to hang my hat on that. These guys are going to teach him how to run, defend, and we're going to have us a complete player. But as a pass rusher, Bailey's just insane. And eventually we're going to get the team to 3rd down. So it's very exciting to have Bailey as an option if he's there. It's very exciting to think about it. It's also the con of maybe he's just a situational player, but great in that situation. So I have love for Bailey as well. I just have Bain rated ahead of Bailey, ranked one spot ahead of Bailey, because I think Bain could be on the field more. Bain has the size where if you do go with a 4-man front at any given moment, uh, Bain could put his hand in the dirt and be that defensive end. I think he's around 270 right now, 275. I think that's where the weight he's going to play at, 275, something like that. Or, I've seen him everywhere from 265 to 285. So I just imagine he'll be 275 right in the middle. If you want him to be light and never put his hand in the dirt, I think at 265 he could still, with his strength, put his hand in the dirt in a four-man front. So there's versatility there. And also, if you just choose to stand him up, he's really good against the run. So Bain doesn't compromise the defense on early downs, run downs. Bain can be on the edge, just like Carl Granderson, stopping the run effectively and then getting after the passer effectively. So that's the reason why Bain's a little higher than Bailey on my preferred list. I think he's better as an every down player than Bailey is right out of the gate. I think Bailey's a better pass rusher than Bain, but I think Bain can make it happen. Now, a lot of people want to talk about this defense and say, well, we need a small guy as an edge because we already have big guys, and Brandon Staley likes to have a mix and yada 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 yada. Well, I've looked into Brandon Staley's defenses. He's never had two edge players with double-digit sacks in a season, except this past year with the Saints. My Simon boy is shedding all over the place. I thought that was wild. I mean, his one great coordinating year, Brandon Staley's great coordinating year with the Rams. Aaron Donald got 13 sacks on the defensive line, and then he had Malcolm Floyd, right? Yeah, I think Malcolm Floyd, who had 10 sacks. So that wasn't two players off the edge. That was a outside linebacker and a defensive lineman getting double-digit sacks. After that, the success he really had. Am I remembering this right? I got to think about it for a second. Okay, I had written it down. I had to go and grab my book so I could remember it correctly. Yeah, that first year with the Rams, he had Leonard Floyd, who was a linebacker size, 240 pounds. He had Leonard Floyd with 10 and a half sacks, and then Aaron Donald had 13 and a half sacks on the defensive line. So then he goes to the Chargers for 3 years as their head coach. Joey Bosa was the only double-digit sack guy his first year with the Chargers. Bosa is 6'5", 280, pretty much a defensive end size. He got that 10 and a half sacks from him. And in the next 2 years, his big sack getter was Khalil Mack, who was an outside linebacker slash defensive end type, 269 pounds. So right around where Bain is would be Khalil Mack. The ability to play defensive end and outside linebacker. And I think Khalil Mack put his hand in the dirt a lot that second year that Brandon Staley was with the Chargers. And Mack led the team with 8 sacks. And in the next year, I think he was standing up more as an outside linebacker, and he got 17 sacks. So Mack at 269 had the flexibility to play defensive end and outside linebacker. Yeah. Hand in the dirt, defensive end, or stand up edge rusher, which in my opinion is a linebacker. And that guy got the most production from a Brandon Staley defense, 17 sacks, a 269-pound guy at outside linebacker getting 17 sacks. It seems to me that whether people think Brandon Staley likes to have little guys, it seems to me that having these bigger guys on the edge works out pretty good for him. His first year with the Saints, he's got two bigger guys, three, with Chase Young, Cam Jordan, and Carl Granderson, and he ends up with two guys with double-digit sacks on the edge for the first time ever in his career. Both of them with bigger guys. Chase Young at 265 and Cam Jordan, who I'm sure was playing at 275. something like that. Grando's hovering around 270 right now. Grando has been heavier. Grando might be less than 270 now. I saw some measurements that had Grando at closer to 260, 65 right now, which is crazy because we had that man bulked up playing on the defensive line and Dennis Allen's defense all these years. Yeah, Grando's probably going to feel better with this weight change of his and probably perform even better this year. So I like the idea of having bigger guys out there. I'm not in any rush to go and get a 245, 240 pound guy just because Malcolm Floyd had 10 and a half sacks one year with Brandon Staley. Doesn't mean that's something Brandon Staley really wants to have. Oh, he probably wants to have some sort of a basketball team, guys of all different shapes and sizes, and Chris Rumph is a perfect example. He's more of a linebacker size that's going to play that edge. And of course, Grando and Chase Young. And I'm just saying, I think Chase Young and Ruben Bain could carry on the same stuff that we saw from Chase Young and Cam Jordan last year. So that's my caveats with Bain and Bailey. I think Bailey would be a part-time player, but an amazing pass rusher. So I'm not going to say no to Bailey. I'm not going to say no to Bain either. Bain and that club move and that strength that he has could really disrupt some stuff, even with his hand in the dirt. That's a good flex player right there to have. Kind of like Khalil Mack. That's the way I look at Ruben Bain. So, yep, yep. I think in a Brandon Staley defense, it's not the type of edge rusher that we're missing or even the production. We need to replace Cam Jordan now. So the production may need to be replaced now. But it's that defensive line. I mean, he doesn't have a Joey Bosa on that defensive line or I'm sorry, yeah, Joey Bosa or Aaron Donald or anything like that. He doesn't have anybody on that defensive line that's going to threaten, a double digit sack. So those guys are hard to come by. But yeah, Brandon Staley, when his defense was at its best, might have had a smaller edge rusher, but he had that massive piece in the middle with Aaron Donald that could do anything, play defensive end or defensive tackle. So as long as his hand was in the dirt, going after the passer, goodness gracious. So yeah, you're not going to find an Aaron Donald in this draft. Okay, what's next on my list? I'm kind of going off of memory. I guess now that I've pulled my book out, I can look at my guys and see where we're at. I've got Makai Lemon rated pretty high. I've got Cornell Tate rated pretty high. Um, I think I've got uh, Jordan Tyson ranked pretty high as well. The last defensive player we're going to talk about is Mansoor Delane and outside cornerback. I don't think anyone's expecting Mansoor Delane to play star. I don't think that that's the vision here. So Mansoor Delane would be an outside corner. He would be an immediate starter, probably opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry, and then Quincy Riley could he'd be your primary backup and he'd be a really good number three outside corner. Then Yadam would be your number four. And yeah, you get Mansoor Delane and you've got the outside cornerbacks pretty much taken care of, I think. I don't mind having Yadam as my number four. I love the idea of a guy like Quincy Riley being able to, be our number three. Of course, Quincy Riley would benefit from playing, and I think Riley's got a lot of potential. I think that Riley played crazy last year as a fourth round pick, and he would only get better if he played more. And I've heard the coaching staff say, they like Riley on the outside. Riley has the ability to play that nickel too. One of the reasons I liked Riley coming out of the draft is his tackling was pretty good. Uh, so as far as positional need, yeah, you need a cornerback. You definitely need a nickel, and I think you need depth on the outside. You get a guy like Mansoor Delane, you're going to have a bona fide starter. Can't say no to that, but you kind of can if Quincy Riley's going to be the man. We didn't have any issues with health last year with McKinstry or with Riley, and we were really good on the outside. And thank goodness we didn't want to play Yadam. And like I've said in other videos, we're not sure, 100% sure, how bad Yadam is in this defense. We saw it for a couple of games. I'm not the kind of guy to judge someone on just a couple of games. Personally, I think Jake Hayner got a bad rep because he only got a half of football, and then all of a sudden, nope, taking him out, and we're going to throw in somebody else. And yeah, come on, nobody else got pulled after one half till they had games and games to fail first. So I'm not going to say Yadam's a bad player in this defense at outside corner. Maybe he's pretty good if he's your number four. So there you go. You get Delane, you get an outside corner. Quincy Riley's growth is suddenly stunted, but yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. Delane would be the best outside corner on the team. Projects that way. That's what you get with Delane. It's not the greatest need outside corner. I think nickel is, but outside corner is something I would love to address at some point, either in free agency or the draft. And Delane's the guy. It seems like he's going to be there. I think Delane is a guy that other teams would want to trade up and get if he's still there when we pick him at 8. So, do we value him as an outside corner on this team so much that we don't take, a king's ransom to trade down? Those are the defensive players that we could take with the first round pick. That one of those guys, a couple of those guys could be there. That's how our defense looks. That's where those players would fit in. So ultimately, that's the reason why I have them ranked the way I do. I think as far as overall players, I factor that in, and then I also factor in, the need and everything else. Yeah, we don't really need a linebacker. We really don't. We don't really need another safety. We really don't. I think if you're going with pure need on the team, another piece at edge rusher, but it wouldn't necessarily be a starter, and an outside cornerback just for depth wouldn't necessarily be a starter. You need a starting nickel. Not sure if you address nickel in the first round. Not sure if you do that. If you do, Caleb Downs is your man. All right, we're going to pull up the offense now, and we're going to look at the few pieces that are there on offense. And I can hear you Saints fans right now saying, hell no, we don't do it. Well, number one on my list is Jeremiah Love. We've got a nice little running back room right now with if Alvin Kamara comes back, with Travis Etienne Jr., Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller stays healthy and on the team, then Devin Neal. All of a sudden, Audric Estime's on the practice squad. Your new guy, Ty Chandler's on the practice squad because you're really good at running back. You're really deep, really good. Achan and AK, that's a good 1-2 punch. Kendre Miller stays healthy. But Jeremiah Love's number one on my board. He's the number one player. The player with no questions. He comes in, he's going to be in the rotation to start, and he's probably your running back of the future. You move on from AK and Kendre Miller within a year anyway. So even if AK's back, even if Kendre Miller's back in here, I think they're both gone by next year. So maybe not a position of immediate need, but you don't pass up the best player in the draft for a guy that's going to be hitting the exit door within a year. So I say you draft Love if he's there, but you have that option to trade down too. That's a guy that somebody's going to want to move up to get probably, and you're pretty good at running back. So that's the caveats with this draft. It seems like no matter how good the player is, the team's set up in a way where you don't really have to address it in the first round. I mean, nickelback is the biggest need on defense for this team. It's just something you don't address, you know, with the first round pick. You usually don't. You get an all world player like Caleb Downs, sure. But Love's my number one guy. If he's there at 8, no one's offering you a king's ransom. You draft him. I don't know what your running back room looks like this particular year coming up, but next year it's going to be Achane and Love, and that's for sure. And that's a pretty good place to be in. The next offensive players I have are the 3 wide receivers. I've got Tate there ahead of Bain and Bailey. I've got so many questions about, how Bain and Bailey fit. And even though both of them could be your starting edge opposite Young, you've got Carl Granderson right now. So Carl Granderson's a pretty good player, worked out okay in this defense. He was the best in coverage on the edge out of all of our defensive edge players last year. So, and then I look at Devon Bailey at wide receiver as our number 2, and I'm like, yeah, I think Carnell Tate would be a bigger upgrade over Devon Bailey than a guy like David Bailey might be, in running downs over Carl Granderson. Now, Ruben Bain might be a better overall player than Carl Granderson, and so there's that. But I know Carnell Tate would be on this team on the field with Chris Olave before Devon Bailey. So I've got Tate ranked pretty high, and he is my number 1 wide receiver. I just can't say no to a big guy that gets open and catches everything. I just can't say no to a guy like that. My next receiver, 8th player overall, Makai Lemon. Yeah, people think he's more of a slot guy. I think if him and Olave are out there and they're your only 2 options at wide receiver, then maybe you're a little limited because of their lack of size. You still got Jawan Johnson. You got Devon Bailey. You can put in the slot. Devon Bailey could be on the outside. Makai Lemon. If we draft a Makai Lemon, we're probably running more 3 wide receiver sets. So I like Makai Lemon, much of the same reasons why people like Chris Bell for the ability to run after catch kind of deal. Omar Cooper Jr. too, a run after catch guy. Makai Lemon would be that guy. He's a guy you get the ball in his hands and let him go do some stuff. So yeah, is he the perfect complement to Olave? No, but I think Lemon is too good to pass up. And I think if you trade down, he might still be on the board for you. And the other wide receiver here, Jordan Tyson. Now he is perfect to complement Olave, and he would be a great player to have. And you could line him up anywhere. And yeah, Jordan Tyson would be great. Probably number 1 wide receiver were it not for the health concerns. So Tyson could fall. I did a mock 2 nights ago where I traded down a couple of times in the first round and still drafted Jordan Tyson with like pick 23. Now that was just a mock, but you never know how far these players could drop. Out of all of these players I have listed here, Tyson would be the main one that could see a drop into the late in the first round. So yeah, if you could trade down, get an extra pick, and still get a great wide receiver, and then he stays healthy. That's the thing. If Jordan Tyson stays healthy, whoever drafts him is going to look like the smartest team in football because I think Tyson's that good. So yeah, I would probably be if we get down to pick 8 and my choices here are the 3 wide receivers and then maybe Mansour Delane and then the offensive lineman after that. Yeah, that might be a chance to trade down. People might be screaming, get Delane. I would probably get Carnell Tate first if I would just make the pick. I might just trade down. So, and when you look at my top 12, those top 4, Love, Downs, Styles, Reese. Those are the guys I'm grabbing, and I don't really consider trading down. But I've done it. Yeah, the opportunity to trade down is always there, and that's the reason I'm doing this video. I like going through these individual players and telling you what I'm thinking. I would consider trading down if Love was there. because if you can pick up an extra body, and I'm not sure, if like I say, you're pretty good at running back with Achan for the next 3 to 4 years. I love Devin Neal. I love Audric Estime. So I don't think passing on Love is detrimental to the team. You still got AK. You still got Kendre Miller, and I really am confident in Devin Neal. So uh, and then you have opportunities to address running back later on in the draft, or in the future once AK and Kendre does leave. So yeah, I mean, there's just lots of caveats. There's a chance to trade down if the opportunity's there. The Saints never do. But yeah, my two, besides Tyson, who could fall, the other two guys that I really love in this draft that would definitely be options should we trade down are the guard in Olave Vega Ioane and the offensive tackle in Francis Malinois. So Malinois would come in. I'm not sure if he would start at right tackle and we would end up moving Fuanga to right guard, or whether Malinois comes in and plays right guard. But yeah, Cesar Ruiz would probably be on the outs if we drafted either of these guys. And Ioane, of course, would be our starting right guard. No doubt about it. I don't know if Edwards would be a better right guard. I think Edwards has been playing left guard forever, so you just put Ioane at right guard and say bye to Cesar Ruiz, and that would make me so happy. And to get Ioane or Malinois with the eighth pick would be crazy for Saints fans. So those two are there for me to tell you. I would love to have them as my first round pick, and either one of those guys would be a better pick, in my opinion, than riding with Cesar Ruiz. But both of those would also be better picks if you're trading down. And that's something the Saints never do. But they're in my top 12, and they're there. And I have the offense pulled up because I want you to look at the offensive players. If you get Tate and he ends up a starting wide receiver for you, yeah, over Vele, it makes sense. You can see it. You can see it. This guy's going to play. He's going to start. Mekhi Lemon would have a place. Jordan Tyson's healthy. He would be your starter opposite Olave. You can improve on Devon Vele. There's no doubt about it. This is Miko, by the way. Miko, I call him Miki. Sometimes I call him Miko Suave. And he drives me crazy. He meows all the time, and he never leaves me alone. He wants me to pet him constantly. Don't you? My little motor running. Everybody taking a place. Simon leaves, Miko comes. Okay, so yeah, I look at the offense and I say, yeah, Cesar Ruiz, biggest hole to fill. Oh, sure, you can go into the year with him. Sure, go ahead. I'd rather go into the year taking my chances on a young guy like Malinois or Ioane. So now that I've broken down all of these first round prospects and shown you the Saints roster, so you can look at the player, look at the roster, figure out how they would fit, what would be most beneficial for the Saints. And like I say, you get best player available. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what hole in the offense or defense you're trying to fill. You get the best player available. But yep, it's one of them things. I had a chance to do a video today. I love breaking it down like this. I love talking about these prospects and how they fit on the Saints. And I love to hear from you. So let me know in the comments how you look at it, what you think is most important, best player available. Like I say, you got my top four. I'll pull it up here. Top four now. And you don't mess around. You don't pass up on those four guys. You go ahead and grab them. There's a place for them. I don't care how much depth we have at linebacker or at safety. You go ahead and grab one of those defensive players. You're good to go. I don't care how much depth we have at running back. You grab Love. You're good to go. And let me know. Am I crazy? Is Edge Rusher too much of a concern to have Tate as an option ahead of him? Or is Bailey too good to pass up and running defense be damned? Let me know in the comments. I'm Joe. Subscribe to my channel. I'll be off that week of the draft. We're going to be doing videos almost every day that week. And I have a couple more coming at you next week. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?